People told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. "You're 65, they said. "You should be enjoying retirement, not raising a child." Even the woman at the adoption agency looked at me with pity. "Mr. Harrison," she whispered, "are you absolutely sure?" I looked through the glass window toward the little boy sitting alone in the corner. 7 years old. Tiny. Skinny. His shoes were 2 sizes too big. He wasn't playing with the other children. He wasn't crying. He simply stared out the window like he'd already accepted that nobody was ever coming for him. That's when I knew. I didn't choose him. He chose me, and I had no idea that 5 years later, on my 70th birthday, that same little boy would stand in front of hundreds of people and change my life forever. My name is Walter Harrison. I spent 42 years working as a firefighter in Cleveland, Ohio. My wife, Margaret, was the love of my life. We dreamed of having children, but after years of trying, the doctors finally told us something neither of us wanted to hear. "We're sorry. We never had children." Margaret always smiled anyway. "We still have each other?" She made every Christmas magical, every birthday unforgettable, every ordinary Tuesday feel like an adventure. Then cancer took her. 8 months. That's all it took. One day we were planning a trip to Yellowstone. The next, I was standing beside her hospital bed, holding a hand that was growing, colder every minute. Her last words still echo in my heart. "Walter, don't spend the rest of your life alone. I know your heart. Someone out there still needs it." After the funeral, the house became unbearably quiet. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was painful. Every room reminded me of her. Her favorite mug. Her knitting basket. The cookbook she'd left open on the kitchen counter. I talked to her picture every morning. Sometimes I answered myself just to hear another voice. Neighbors tried to help. My sister invited me over. Friends asked me fishing. But grief has a way of making a crowded room feel empty. One rainy afternoon, I drove without any destination. I stopped at a red light. That's when I noticed an old brick building. Hope Children's Center. Kids were playing outside. Laughing. Running. Except for one boy. He sat alone beneath a maple tree, watching everyone else. Something about him reminded me of myself, alone in a crowd. I don't know why, but I parked. Inside, I met Mrs. Alvarez. She'd worked there for almost 30 years. "What brings you here?" "I don't know." She smiled. "Sometimes that's enough." She gave me a tour. Children filled the halls. Some laughed. Some argued over toys. Some proudly showed me drawings. But every few minutes, my eyes drifted toward the quiet boy. He never smiled. Finally, I asked, "What's his story?" Mrs. Alvarez sighed. "His name is Noah. He's been here almost 3 years. No relatives. No visitors. No birthday cards. Nothing." "What happened to his parents?" "His mother died from an overdose. His father disappeared." My chest tightened. "Has anyone tried adopting him?" She hesitated. "Several families." "What happened?" "They wanted younger children. Or healthier children. He has severe anxiety. He barely speaks. Some parents said he wasn't affectionate enough." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not affectionate enough? How could anyone expect love from a child who had never truly received it? Mrs. Alvarez continued. "He stopped asking when people came to visit. He assumes they'll leave. They always do." I watched him through the window. He looked so small, so tired, so hopeless, almost like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on tiny shoulders. Without thinking, I walked outside. He didn't look at me. I sat beside him. For nearly 10 minutes. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, "Beautiful tree." He nodded. A few minutes later, "I used to climb trees." Silence. Then, "I can't anymore." Still nothing. Finally, a tiny voice. My mom liked maple trees. It was the first sentence he'd spoken all day. I smiled. "They're my favorite too." He glanced at me. Just once. His eyes were gray. Not cold. Just sad. "I like watching birds." "So do I. They always come back." I swallowed. "Sometimes people do too." He looked away. "No, they don't." I had no answer, because he was speaking from experience. For the next several weeks, I visited every Tuesday, every Friday, every Sunday. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we simply fed birds. Little by little, he began trusting me. One afternoon, he asked, "Why do you keep coming?" "Because I like spending time with you." "You'll stop." "No." "They all stop." "I won't." He stared at me for what felt like forever, then quietly asked, "Promise?" "I promise." He held out his little finger. I wrapped mine around his. The smallest promise would become the biggest promise of my life. When I told my family I wanted to adopt Noah, the room went silent. My younger brother laughed. "You're serious? You're 65. What if something happens to you?" My niece added, "Kids need young parents." Friends said, "You've earned your freedom. Travel. Relax. Don't start over." Nobody asked what Noah needed. They only asked what I might lose. But every night I remembered Margaret's final words. Someone out there still needs your heart. Maybe she had been talking about him all along. 3 months later, the adoption paperwork was finally approved. Mrs. Alvarez hugged me. "You've given this little boy something priceless." I smiled. "I haven't done anything yet." She looked toward Noah. "You already have. Hope." When Noah climbed into my truck for the very first time, he carried only one small backpack. Inside it were 2 shirts, 1 pair of jeans, a stuffed rabbit missing 1 ear, and a photograph of his mother. That was everything he owned in the world. As we drove away, he looked back at the orphanage, not because he wanted to stay, because he couldn't believe he was actually leaving. Halfway home, he whispered, "Can I ask something?" "Anything. If I'm bad, will you bring me back?" My heart shattered. I pulled the truck onto the shoulder, turned toward him, and said words I'd never spoken before. "Noah, you're home now. No matter what happens, I'm never giving you back." For the first time, the little boy no one wanted started to cry, not because he was afraid, but because, for the first time in years, someone had finally chosen him. The first night Noah slept in my house, I barely slept at all. Not because he cried, not because he made noise, because he didn't. Around midnight, I walked quietly down the hallway to check on him. His bedroom door was slightly open. Moonlight spilled across the floor. The bed was empty. My heart nearly stopped. I searched the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room. Then I found him. He was curled up on the hallway floor outside my bedroom door, hugging his old stuffed rabbit. I knelt beside him. "Noah?" His eyes opened instantly, filled with panic. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to make you mad." "You didn't." I thought, if you woke up and couldn't find me, maybe you'd think I ran away. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So why are you sleeping here?" He stared at the floor. "At the children's home. Whenever someone disappeared during the night, they never came back." He hesitated before adding, "I wanted to make sure you were still here." I couldn't speak for a moment. I simply picked him up, carried him back to his room, tucked him into bed, and sat beside him until he fell asleep. Before drifting off, he whispered 4 words that broke my heart. "You really came back." The next morning began with pancakes. Or at least, they were supposed to be pancakes. Mine looked more like burnt hockey pucks. Noah stared at them with wide eyes. "Are they supposed to be black?" I laughed harder than I had in years. "No, they're supposed to be breakfast." For the first time, I heard a tiny laugh escape from him. It lasted only a second, but it filled the entire kitchen. That little laugh reminded me of something Margaret used to say. Healing doesn't always arrive with tears. Sometimes it arrives with laughter. Life slowly settled into a routine. Every morning we ate breakfast together. Every afternoon I picked Noah up from school. Every evening we read a chapter from a book before bed. Some days were wonderful. Others were incredibly hard. Noah apologized for everything. If he spilled milk, "I'm sorry." If he sneezed, "I'm sorry." If he laughed too loudly, "I'm sorry." One afternoon I finally asked, "Why do you apologize so much?" He looked confused. "Because if I'm perfect," he whispered, People won't send me away. I pulled my truck to the side of the road. I looked him straight in the eyes. Noah, you don't have to earn your place in this family. You're already part of it. He didn't answer, but I could tell he wanted to believe me. School wasn't easy. Noah struggled to make friends. Some children noticed how quiet he was. Others asked uncomfortable questions. Where's your real dad? Why are you living with your grandpa? Did nobody want you? One afternoon, he climbed into the truck without saying a word. His eyes were red. Halfway home, he finally asked, Am I different? Aren't we all? They said nobody wanted me. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. They're wrong. Then why did everyone leave? I didn't have an easy answer, so I gave him an honest one. Sometimes adults make terrible choices. Those choices were never your fault. He looked out the window. I wish people could see that. So do I. A few weeks later, I received a call from his teacher. Mr. Harrison, could you come to school? My stomach dropped. When I arrived, I expected trouble. Instead, I found Noah sitting beside another little boy who had scraped his knee on the playground. The teacher smiled. Most children ran away when they saw the blood. Noah stayed. He held the boy's hand until the nurse arrived. She looked at Noah. When I asked why he stayed, she smiled through tears. Said he knows what it feels like to be scared and alone. I looked at my son. For the first time, I realized something extraordinary. The child who had suffered the most was becoming the one who comforted others. That evening, we stopped for ice cream. What flavor? Chocolate. Good choice. He grinned. I've never had 2 scoops before. Then today is your lucky day. As we sat on a park bench, an elderly woman nearby dropped her grocery bag. Before I could stand, Noah was already helping her pick everything up. The woman smiled warmly. You have a wonderful grandson. I started to correct her. Instead, I smiled. Thank you. On the drive home, Noah quietly asked, Does it bother you when people think you're my grandpa? I laughed. Not even a little. I'd be proud to be called anything. As long as I get to be your family. He turned toward the window so I wouldn't see the tears in his eyes. But I saw them anyway. Months passed. The house slowly changed. Crayons appeared on the refrigerator. Soccer shoes landed in the hallway. Comic books covered the coffee table. The silence that once haunted every room disappeared. In its place came laughter. Questions. Footsteps. Life. One rainy Saturday, Noah wandered into the attic. A few minutes later, he came downstairs carrying an old photo album. He climbed beside me on the couch. Who's she? I smiled at Margaret's picture. My wife. She looks kind. She was. Did she know me? No. But I think she would have loved you. He studied the photograph for a long time, then quietly asked, Can I call her Grandma Margaret? The tears came before I could stop them. I think she'd love that. As Noah grew more comfortable, he began smiling more often. He even joined the school's community garden club. Every Saturday, he brought flowers home. One bouquet always went into a vase in the kitchen. The other, he placed at Margaret's grave. One afternoon, I watched him kneel beside her headstone. I never got to meet you, he whispered. But thank you for sending your husband to find me. I stood several feet away, unable to move. Sometimes children understand miracles better than adults do. Not everyone approved of our little family. One afternoon, my younger brother visited. He pulled me aside. Walter, you're getting older. What happens if you die? That boy loses another family. His words stung because part of me had asked myself the same question. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table staring at legal papers. Insurance policies, savings accounts. A will that hadn't been updated in years. I realized something. Loving Noah meant preparing for a future I might not see. The next morning, I met with an attorney. Everything I owned, the house, my savings, my truck, every family keepsake, would one day belong to Noah. When I returned home, I felt strangely peaceful. Not because I expected to leave him, because I knew that if I ever had to, he would never be alone again. That evening, Noah walked into the garage while I was repairing an old wooden bench. Can I help? Absolutely. I handed him a small paintbrush. We spent hours sanding and painting together. When we finished, he looked at the bench proudly. "We built something." I smiled. "Yes, we did." He shook his head. "I don't mean the bench." I looked at him. "I think we're building a family." I wrapped my arm around his shoulders. "You know what? I think you're right." Later that night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked one final question. "Dad!" It was the first time he'd ever called me that. I froze. "Yes? If I keep calling you Dad, will you keep answering?" I kissed the top of his head. "For the rest of my life." He smiled. And for the first time since I'd met him, the fear in his eyes was almost gone. But neither of us knew that our happiest days were about to be tested. Just a few months later, a sudden phone call from the hospital would change everything, forcing 12-year-old Noah to make a promise that would shape both of our lives forever. The phone rang at 5:42 on a cold November morning. I had been awake for only a few minutes, making coffee while Noah was still asleep upstairs. As I reached for the mug, a sharp pain exploded across my chest. The cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. The next thing I remember was lying on the cold tile, struggling to breathe. Then I heard footsteps racing down the stairs. "Dad!" Noah's voice echoed through the house. He dropped to his knees beside me, his face pale with fear. "Dad, stay with me." I tried to answer, but no words came out. Instead, I reached for his hand. His small fingers wrapped tightly around mine. "I'll get help," he whispered. "Please don't leave me." The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics praised Noah for staying calm. "He probably saved your life," one of them said. At the hospital, doctors confirmed I had suffered a moderate heart attack. I would recover, but recovery would take time. When I finally opened my eyes later that afternoon, Noah was asleep in the chair beside my bed. His head rested awkwardly against the wall. His stuffed rabbit, now faded and stitched together, several times, was still tucked under his arm. The nurse smiled. He refused to go home. He kept saying, "My dad stayed with me. Now I stay with him." Tears filled my eyes. The following weeks were difficult. The doctors ordered me to avoid lifting heavy objects. No climbing ladders. No long hours working in the yard. For someone who had spent 4 decades running into burning buildings, sitting still felt impossible. Noah noticed my frustration. One Saturday morning, I found him mowing the lawn. The mower was almost as big as he was. I hurried outside. "What are you doing?" He looked embarrassed. "I wanted to help." I turned off the mower. "You don't have to take care of everything." He smiled softly. "I know, but families help each other." Those words sounded so simple, yet they carried the wisdom of someone far older than 12. As winter settled over Ohio, Christmas approached. It would be our 5th Christmas together. The house glowed with lights. Noah insisted we decorate every inch of it. He carefully unpacked the old ornaments Margaret had collected over the years. One ornament caught his attention. A tiny porcelain angel. "Who's this?" I smiled. "Your mom, Grandma Margaret, bought that the year we got married." He held it carefully. "It looks lonely." So did I. He gently placed it at the very top of the tree. Not anymore. On Christmas Eve, a heavy snowstorm hit. The roads were nearly empty. Around 9 p.m., someone knocked on our front door. Outside stood our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. She was shivering. "The power went out," she said. My furnace stopped working. Without hesitation, Noah grabbed blankets from the hallway closet. "She can stay with us." That night, 3 generations sat together around the fireplace drinking hot chocolate. Mrs. Jenkins watched Noah helping refill everyone's mugs. She leaned toward me. "You've raised a remarkable young man." I shook my head. "No. He raised me too." The years continued to pass. Noah entered high school. He wasn't the most popular student. He wasn't the star athlete, but somehow everyone knew his name. Teachers admired his kindness. Classmates trusted him. If someone was being bullied, Noah was the first to stand beside them. If a new student ate lunch alone, Noah sat beside them. If someone couldn't afford school supplies, they mysteriously appeared in their locker the next morning. One afternoon I asked, "Why do you spend so much time helping everyone else?" He thought quietly before answering. Because I remember what it felt like when nobody helped me. That spring, Noah came home carrying a folded piece of paper. What's that? A permission slip. For what? Our school is organizing volunteers at the children's shelter. I looked at the logo on the form. Hope Children's Center, the same place where I'd first met him. I looked at Noah. Are you sure you're ready? He nodded. I think another little kid might need someone to sit beside them under a tree. Walking through those familiar doors was emotional for both of us. Mrs. Alvarez was older now. Her hair had turned completely silver. The moment she saw Noah, tears filled her eyes. My goodness. Look at you. She hugged him tightly. I always knew you'd come back. Noah smiled. I promised someone I would. For the rest of the afternoon, he played games with the children, read books, and listened to their stories. Near the end of the visit, one little boy quietly asked him, Do people ever get adopted when they're older? Noah knelt in front of him. They do. What if nobody picks me? Noah smiled gently. The right family doesn't pick the easiest child. They find the one they're meant to love. I watched from across the room. Years earlier, those words would have sounded impossible. Now they were true. That evening, on the drive home, Noah stared out the window. Dad! Yes? I think I know what I want to do with my life. What? I want to help children who think nobody wants them. I smiled. I can't imagine a better person for that job. By the time Noah graduated from high school, the entire town seemed to know him. His guidance counselor shook my hand. I've worked here for 28 years. I've never met a student with a bigger heart. He had earned a scholarship to study social work. When I asked if he was excited, he laughed. I'm terrified. So was I the day I became your dad. He smiled. Guess we're even. College changed many people. It didn't change Noah. Every weekend he came home. He still mowed my lawn, still fixed things around the house, still brought flowers to Margaret's grave. One afternoon, he surprised me by replacing the old mailbox I'd been meaning to repair. I laughed. When did you learn all this? He grinned. Watching you. During his senior year of college, Noah received an offer from a large company in Chicago. The salary was incredible. Friends told him he'd be crazy to refuse. Instead, he turned it down. You worked too hard to throw away an opportunity like this, I told him. He smiled. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something better. What? He looked me straight in the eyes. Coming home. He accepted a modest position at a nonprofit that helped foster children find permanent families. Every evening he came home smiling. I helped another kid today. Nothing made him happier. As my 70th birthday approached, Noah became strangely secretive. He whispered on the phone. He disappeared for meetings. He kept asking odd questions. Dad, what was your favorite birthday? What kind of cake did Mom like? How many people can fit in the backyard? I laughed. Planning something? He smiled innocently. Maybe? I had no idea what he was hiding. But one thing became clear. Whatever he was planning, it wasn't just a birthday party. It was something much bigger. And on the morning of my 70th birthday, a knock at my front door would reveal a surprise so extraordinary that not a single person in attendance would leave, with dry eyes. When I woke up on the morning of my 70th birthday, the house was strangely quiet. No smell of coffee. No sound of Noah humming while making breakfast. No footsteps in the hallway. Instead, there was a handwritten note taped to my bedroom door. Happy birthday, Dad. Trust me today. Don't ask questions. Be ready at 10 a.m. Love, Noah. I laughed. The boy who used to be afraid I'd disappear overnight was now ordering me around. At exactly 10 o'clock, Noah pulled into the driveway in an old blue pickup truck, my truck, freshly washed until it sparkled. He stepped out wearing a navy blue suit. You look nervous, I said. I am. Why? Because today I've been waiting 5 years to say something. He opened the passenger door. Come on. Instead of driving toward town, we headed to the old Hope Children's Center, the same brick building where we had first met. As we turned into the parking lot, I froze. Cars filled every space. Colorful balloons lined the entrance. A large banner stretched across the front lawn. Happy 70th birthday, Walter Harrison. Below it, in smaller letters, one act of love can change generations. My eyes immediately filled with tears. Noah, what is all this? He smiled. You'll see. The moment we walked inside, everyone shouted, Surprise! The room erupted in applause. I recognized faces from every chapter of my life. Mrs. Jenkins, our elderly neighbor. My former firefighter crew. Teachers from Noah's school. Mrs. Alvarez, friends I hadn't seen in years. Even my younger brother stood quietly near the back, tears already running down his face. I hugged people until I could barely breathe. Then Noah gently tapped a glass. The room slowly became silent. He walked onto a small stage. For a moment, he simply looked at me. Then he smiled. When I was 7 years old, he began. I believed something was wrong with me. I believed I wasn't lovable. I believed every family that walked away from me was proof that I wasn't enough. The room was completely silent. I stopped asking people their names because I assumed they'd leave. I stopped unpacking my backpack because I assumed I'd be moved again. I stopped celebrating birthdays because nobody remembered them. He looked toward me. Then one rainy afternoon, a quiet man sat beside me under a maple tree. He didn't ask me to smile. He didn't ask me to be brave. He just stayed. His voice trembled. People say Dad rescued me. He shook his head. That's not true. He rescued himself too. When my dad lost my mom, he thought his life was over. But instead of closing his heart, he opened it. And because he opened it, so many other lives changed. I lowered my head, unable to stop crying. Noah continued. After college, I started working with foster children. People often ask me why. My answer is simple. Because one man refused to believe that an unwanted child was impossible to love. The audience applauded. Then Noah smiled. But today isn't about my story. It's about his. The lights dimmed. A video appeared on a large screen. Old photographs filled the room. The first picture showed me sitting beside a frightened little boy under a maple tree. The next showed us burning pancakes together. Another showed Noah asleep beside my hospital bed. Then came birthdays, camping trips, Christmas mornings, school plays, high school graduation, college graduation, every milestone we had shared. The final picture showed us standing beside Margaret's grave, holding fresh flowers. Across the screen appeared one sentence: Love doesn't require the same blood. It requires the same heart. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Then Noah said something unexpected. Dad, I have one more surprise. The doors at the back of the room slowly opened. Children began walking inside, one after another. Some were toddlers, some were teenagers. Each carried a single white rose. I looked at Noah in confusion. He smiled through tears. Every one of these children found a forever family through our nonprofit. My heart stopped. There are 47 of them. He looked at the children. Because of you. I shook my head. What do you mean? He walked toward me. The day you adopted me, you didn't just change one life. You inspired everything I have done since. Every family we've helped. Every child we've comforted. Every adoption we've celebrated. It all started because you chose one little boy everyone else overlooked. One by one, the children came forward and placed their roses in my hands. Soon, I was holding the biggest bouquet I'd ever seen. Mrs. Alvarez stepped onto the stage. She smiled warmly. Walter, I've worked with abandoned children for almost 40 years. I've seen many families, but I've never seen one create so many others. She handed me a framed photograph. It showed Noah at 7 years old sitting beneath that maple tree. Below it was engraved, "The day hope found a home." My younger brother slowly approached me. He looked ashamed. I owe you an apology. I told you adopting Noah was a mistake. I've never been more wrong. He hugged Noah tightly. I'm proud to call you my nephew. Noah smiled. I've always wanted to hear that. Then Noah reached into his pocket. He pulled out one final envelope. I've kept this secret for almost a year. Inside was a deed. I looked at it in confusion. What is this? He smiled. The Hope Children's Center was going to close because of funding. So, I bought it. The room gasped. I've renamed it. He pointed toward a curtain covering a new sign. The curtain fell. Everyone stood. The sign read, "The Harrison Hope Center, where every child deserves to be chosen." I couldn't speak. "Noah, He interrupted me. "No, Dad." We did. I finally stepped onto the stage. For several seconds, I couldn't find my voice. Then I looked around the room. At the children. At the families. At the friends. At my son. When Margaret died, I thought my life had ended. I believed I had nothing left to give. I was wrong. The greatest chapter of my life didn't begin when I was young. It began when I was 65, when one frightened little boy trusted an old man sitting beside him. I looked directly at Noah. "People often congratulate me for adopting you. But the truth is, my son, you adopted me too." The audience rose to its feet. The applause lasted several minutes. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Noah and I sat beneath the same old maple tree behind the center. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Noah smiled. "Remember the first thing I ever asked you?" I nodded. "If I'm bad, will you bring me back?" He laughed softly. "I was so scared." "You don't have to be anymore." He looked at me. "I know." Then he reached into his pocket and handed me a small wooden box. Inside was the old Pinky Promise photo Mrs. Alvarez had secretly taken years ago, the day I promised never to leave him. Beside it was a new engraving. Some promises don't last a lifetime. They create one. A gentle breeze stirred the maple leaves overhead. For a moment I closed my eyes. I could almost hear Margaret's voice again. "Someone out there still needs your heart." She had been right. Not because I saved a little boy, but because together, that little boy and I discovered that love grows larger every time it's shared. And as Noah wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and we watched dozens of children laughing outside the Harrison Hope Center, I realized something that took me 70 years to understand. Family isn't found. Family is chosen, and the boy no one wanted became the greatest blessing of my entire life.